From Gaza to Damascus, from Tehran to Beirut, from Kabul, Beijing, Washington, Dhaka, Kiev, and Moscow, dictators have been falling like ninepins. It's the domino effect, assassinations routine as rabble-rousing demagogues and influencers set a troubling new narrative of wars and missile attacks and the high-tech warfare that deploys drones and UAVs. As 2024 spirals to a close, we look back through the prism of Global Express on the major events that set 2024 apart. A year when virtually every nation held polls and a host of fresh new faces were elected to office or grabbed power. The United States certainly sprung a huge surprise when the country rejected Democrat Kamala Harris and fell back on a Republican candidate who won by a landslide. Donald Trump, who survived an assassination attempt, not one, but two, is set to shake up not just America but the world. Supreme at home, but US power will be tested as Trump threatens not just a tariff war and a tax cut, but a crackdown on undocumented immigrants. While a shadow president and tech maven Elon Musk is set to play puppeteer on the world stage. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, feted by the outgoing President Joe Biden at his home in Wilmington as a special ally, is bracing for this Trumpian test. India's immediate challenge in 2024, however, didn't even come from its arch enemy Pakistan, but from China, and a 4-year-long border standoff that was unlike any of the preceding clashes along the line of actual control. Geospatial intelligence has lifted the lid off China's rapid infrastructure build, roads, underground tunnels, and air bases, redrawing the boundary, showing scant disregard for India with its blatant ingress of territory. The peace agreement that India ultimately forged with China had the active encouragement, the prodding of one of India's strongest allies, Russian President Vladimir Putin, whose growing closeness to the Chinese President Xi Jinping was a factor for a show of unity at the BRICS summit in Kazan that Russia was hosting. The October border agreement between India and China after 24 rounds of talks is through, but whether India can take China at its word is another matter altogether. 2024 brought a fresh set of challenges to India. One, the Indian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's charges that India had sent its agents to assassinate a Sikh leader was backed by the US and the Five Eyes. India put up a strong defense, but it's a debate that continues to fester, with the specter of Khalistan separatism continuing to engage Indian security experts. Delhi also had to move swiftly to retain a modicum of influence over a Sri Lanka that was turning left with the ascension to power of a former virulently anti-India party that swept aside entrenched political parties. President Anura Kumara Dissanayaka's victory was a major upset, but India has scrambled to build bridges with Sri Lanka's new dispensation. China's presence in Sri Lanka waters, however, continue to be a source of major concern. Delhi has tiptoed back into Kabul despite deep reservations about the mullahcracy's treatment of women and the Taliban Emirates' refusal to allow girls' education and provide health care. And days after India's senior-most official in charge of relations with Kabul met with senior members of the Taliban, a leading member of the Haqqani network with once close ties to Pakistan's counterintelligence agency, the Inter-Services Intelligence, was bumped off by a suicide bomber. Was this a message from Pakistan to its former protege, the Haqqanis, for their outreach to the West and to India, for harboring anti-Pakistan elements like the Tahaffuz movement, the Taliban, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan? Was it an internal rift within the Taliban? Is India going to pay a price for warming to the new Kabul? Far more shocking was India's failure to see the fall of its trusted ally in Dhaka, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina Wajid, a monumental error of judgment. The students' movement that led to Sheikh Hasina's ouster stands hijacked by violent radical Islamic elements that unleashed a string of attacks on Hindu monks, on churches, and Sufi shrines. India, which has given Hasina refuge, is still scrambling to find a way to tackle the rise of a radical Islamist theocracy in its now vulnerable eastern track. 2024 will be remembered for the major upheavals, the wars, and the conflict that erupted. The Middle East, where innocent Palestinians in Gaza continue to pay the price for an Iran working in tandem with its proxy Hamas to wage war on Israel. The nuclear shadow over the region, as Israel and Iran unleashed a tit-for-tat missile attack on each other's territory that left Iran's missile shield exposed for what it was and raised fears in Israel, despite its much vaunted Iron Dome of its own vulnerability. The Russia-Ukraine clash, which has put all of Europe at risk, particularly NATO, which has backed Kiev with vital intelligence and weapons, pushing all of Europe to pick sides. Russia is waiting for a Trumpian solution. But the Middle East has seen and Israel being given a virtual free hand to rearrange borders. And it's not just Gaza and the hapless Palestinians and Hamas and Hezbollah leaders who are facing Israeli hellfire, but Lebanon as well, and now Syria. The overnight exit of Syrian strongman Bashar al-Assad from the capital Damascus is a body blow to Iran and to Russia, which has lost the use of both its bases in Syria. The Kurdish enclave Rojava is facing Turkey's wrath. A major dam in the Euphrates River is also at risk. Multiple cities that the Kurdish militia are controlling are falling under the Turkish boot. Israel is the clear winner in all of this. It has snapped the Shia crescent that ran from Syria through Iraq and Lebanon. Israel has taken over the Golan Heights. It is building a buffer against a nuclear Iran. That, of course, may or may not hold. We've tracked the far more alarming rise in Syria of an Al-Qaeda offshoot in the Hayat al-Tahrir al-Sham. That has taken power in the Syrian capital. Does it have the US's blessing? Are they working in tandem with Israel and Turkey? The new strongman, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is the man to watch, just as Russia's Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump are? 2024 then. This was the chaos theory at its best, laying the seeds for an ever-widening global disorder in 2025, a year of conflict and war, is what we can expect.